like playing these roles, and if so, why? Could we start with that, maybe? Do you like playing Creon? This quite...
very powerful. Yeah, not a nice person to play, but the power was really interesting to play with. But yeah, not a nice character. However, when we were rehearsing, this is just such a great play. It just reminded me what a great play it is. Obviously, I've taught it and I have directed it myself a couple of times, but actually doing it again, I was just like, this is just a great play. It's just got so much meat in it. And in terms of his character development, he's kind of like this, and then that twist in the mid, sort of towards the end of the play, where he suddenly realises everything he's done has been a complete and utter disaster. That's quite a strong lesson to learn. And then the downfall's pretty quick after that. So that was interesting.
And what about playing it as a woman?
Although I didn't feel very feminine when I was playing it, to be honest. I felt I was trying to portray a male persona in a way. I can't think of many women who would not listen to the obvious things that were being said to them.
Maggie Thatcher?
That's the only person I can actually think about. But then Margaret Thatcher definitely framed herself as a male with a male persona. She, she had a handbag, but that was the only thing really. She was surviving in a male world as a female, but really a male figurehead. And I think that in the way that Creon is, just being completely dismissive of others' feelings. I mean, it's almost like a sociopath, really, in a way, that there's no understanding of an emotional response.
And with his link to Trump, didn't it?
Yeah.
Right, doing this performance.
Yeah,
how Trump was at the kind of the height, or just the election.
Yeah, how could anyone be so unconnected to the realities of life? Yeah, absolutely. Very Trump-esque.
Yeah, because a lot of the words you were speaking sounded as if they'd come out of a Trump interview earlier in the day.
Yeah, and the mannerisms as well.
Yeah,
that you put into it. It was very clever.
But the fact that it was 2,500 years old as well, I think really, I mean, that's what surprised us all the time, even if we know the play.
Yeah.
To hear those words coming out and reminding ourselves that is 2,500 years old, and there is
it still resonates.
It still works.
Yes, it really does resonate.
I think it was really interesting, I don't know if you found it, Daria, but doing the chorus, whereas the chorus would normally be this kind of body, that we were deciding, weren't we, on we started to develop characters with the chorus, and those of us who were going to agree with Creon,
because
and
in
those
classical Greek theatre, chorus, they were talking to the audience. So they were something separate from the other actors who were playing characters. So chorus would comment on what's going on and also give a moral lesson to the audience. But because we had this barrier between us and the audience because of the COVID time theatre, we couldn't be so engaged with the audience, right? So only option was to be engaged with the other characters. And we developed our chorus members. We were gossiping between ourselves. We were discussing what Creon has done, what Antigone is doing. We were taking sides. We were judgmental.
Feeling those moments when what he was doing, you could see that it was all going to go horribly wrong. And I know towards the end of the performance, that wonderful speech you do about the sword that hangs over his head, I was getting really emotional by the last, the nights of the performance, because it was such a powerful idea.
But and then it was like they were actually, in a way, it felt like they were kind of against. There wasn't a lot of it wasn't that they had turned, which was very interesting. It was very obvious that they had turned.
What about for you, Alice, with playing a character who would have been performed by a man in ancient Greek times? What was that like for you in terms of the language?
I think it was very interesting because I've seen a lot of modern adaptations of the play, and it seems like the women really take on the feminine role, but I wanted to kind of mix it up a bit. I wanted to kind of have different size and characteristics to her. And the first thing that I kind of thought of was like one of those like religious extremist people that are kind of preaching and everybody loves them and they're kind of falling at their feet and stuff. And I thought, yeah, I think that's kind of what Antigone is. And they're not all, flowery and nice and great, which is the big irony there. And I really feel that Creon and Antigone are both kind of two sides of evil, almost. Yeah. Like, she's not all great, he's not all great,
not at all.
She's not all bad, he's not all bad, kind of thing. So I really liked exploring that. And it was almost like two political parties, almost.
And with the pandemic, one of the discussions we had was about being more like somebody who breaks the COVID rules, wasn't it? I will go out and I will bury the body, despite the government mandate and restrictions.
Yeah, like Antigone was the face of the protests, She was the one that was not wearing masks, that sort of thing. But and in kind of the play sense, she was the one that was burying her brother because that was fair. Whereas, as we've seen in the world, people haven't been able to be at funerals and bury their loved ones, which is very sad. But she was like, no, I'm going to do it. I don't care what the government says. So that was very interesting to play that rebellious figure.
It was the elastic band, wasn't it? The two sides kind of pulling against.
But it is interesting though, because that kind of behaviour and response, in a way. So, for example, if we look at America, where the people are like, when they can't tell us what to do, everybody's sort of been pretty anti that response. But you don't feel that about Antigone. You actually kind of go, oh, actually, we are behind that kind of rebellion. So it's an interesting dichotomy there that Creon actually, the biggest issue, of course, is that he sets himself up before the gods. But in COVID times, actually, he is making the right decision.
And
we've gone back to the ancient way of looking at these two figures, because for many centuries it was the idea that Antigone is this great rebellion, that she's on the right, then she becomes a feminist icon, and now we've gone back to the more balanced and also maybe slightly more in favour of Creon at certain points.
I didn't really want everybody to like Antigone. I wanted there to be mixed opinions. For sure.
We left it quite open in terms of, as well, we talked about going in the direction of a Jacinda Ardern figure. We thought that's kind of an easy route to take. I mean, people could say the Trump route was very easy to take, but it was quite open for people to make that decision about whether the director and the actors were very left or very right. It was quite ambiguous as to what people felt at the end of the play.
And it's interesting because, Jackie and I taught the play and directed the play over years, different times. And we've often said to students, why is the play not called Creon? Why is it called Antigone? And then remembering that it was originally written by a man to be performed by men, what is it actually trying to say about women? Whereas nowadays, as you say, we tend to see her as this kind of feminist icon. But in fact, really, the ancient Greeks are perhaps showing that side, women are not to be trusted, women are not
and there's a beautiful irony for you guys as well, because it was, although I tried to set out and create a play that was 50-50 women and men, we ended up with 5 women in the play. Unfortunately, unfortunately, Maurice isn't here today, who played Art Ismani, but there was 5 women dominating the play, and one male of
and also what was hilarious was that Zach and Haman, he was the voice of reason in the play.
Haman is the voice.
He's the voice of reason, and he was the only man in the show.
But one of the things we also talked about is that actually with the play, hubris is the downfall of every character. Everybody's pride is what causes their downfall, except for Teresa's, who's the only one who seems to disappear, and we never really find out about what happens to him. But certainly Eurydice, with her pride, she even says, we are bred to stoicism in this family.
And I think there's perhaps a lesson for the world, our pride, thinking that we're doing quite well, and then suddenly, the ancients would definitely have said that we were slapped down by the gods for hubris. So that's definitely something to think
as
about.
an irony in terms of during the COVID pandemic as well, pride is what becomes our downfall. You know, we talk about constantly, oh, you know, we haven't had COVID, but of course a week after this production, we went into lockdown with the Valentine's Day lockdown.
Yes,
So.
yes, it was marvellous.
Ironically, speaking of pride, I'm proud of Eurydice. I mean, I don't agree with her and what she did. After all, she committed suicide. But I'm proud of her because she turned out to be the only person of action. While others were spending hours and hours talking, arguing, etc., she came in, she reassessed the situation, and she's gone. That's the only one person of action.
That's a really good point. She made her decision and that was it. And she didn't make a huge fanfare of it either. Whereas Creon, gets this moment of lamentation where he's centre stage, makes for great tragedy. She just gets on with the business.
Yeah, so she's a very strong character too.
Yeah, but it's interesting because her death is not lauded. I mean, it's literally mentioned in that last speech, and by the way, your wife's dead. I mean, it literally is a sort of, it's an afterthought. So in a way, it does sort of suggest, I mean, yes, she was a woman of action, but it does suggest to the Greeks of the time that basically women come and go.
Yeah, wonderful. I think that's a great note to finish on. Thank you so much, guys, for coming in and discussing your wonderful production.